You know that feeling, right? Like your smartphone is calling the shots instead of you. You wake up, scroll through the feeds they dictate, use the apps they approve, and watch your personal data vanish into some massive corporate data center. Well, welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving headfirst into an absolutely fascinating blueprint from our source material called The Architect's Journey. It's basically a survival guide, a way to take back your digital and psychological autonomy from these massive, centralized systems. We're going to unpack a totally new way of interacting with tech, where you actually write the rules of your own reality. Let's get right into it.
So, we're kicking things off with a massive, literally foundational shift in perspective. The text throws a huge what-if at us. What if you stopped being a passive user and actually became the server? Because right now, to the modern tech industry, you're pretty much just a standardized unit, a data point, someone who blindly clicks I agree to terms of service you literally can't negotiate just so you can rent space in a digital world built by someone else. But imagine flipping that entire dynamic on its head. The Architect's Journey wants us to rip out the current foundation. Instead of renting space from a megacorporation, what if you became the absolute source of truth for your own data?
All right, part one, escaping the square trap. To figure out how to escape, we first need to understand the trap itself. The source text calls the architecture of our current digital world the governor. Just picture the ultimate micromanaging boss of your entire digital life. We're talking centralized tech giants, restrictive app stores telling you exactly what software you're allowed to install, and even giant medical bureaucracies siloing your health data. The text argues that these guys operate this rigid, highly monitored lattice. They treat us like uniform little blocks that have to fit perfectly into their pre-authorized designs. Basically, you're only allowed to compute, connect, or even heal in ways the governor has pre-approved and can monitor 24/7. It's wild when you look at the stark contrast between our current reality and true technical freedom. Think about it. On one side, you have the portal. A corporate portal is essentially a shiny digital toll booth. A massive corporation owns the window, manages who gets in, controls the exit, and takes a continuous tax of your data just for the privilege of using it. You play by their rules, no exceptions. But on the other side, you have the server. A server is a digital fortress owned 100% by you. It's absolute local data protection. It runs strictly on your sovereign rules, way out of the governor's reach. You're no longer asking for permission, right? You're the one granting it.
Moving on to part two, the Sovereign Node Blueprint.
So how do we actually escape this lattice? The text lays out this really cool concept called building a moon server. And this isn't just some abstract philosophical idea. It's a literal physical shift in your tech. It means taking an actual device, maybe an old smartphone you have lying around, or a small local computer on your desk, and transforming it into a self-reliant, decentralized digital home. You're taking your reliance off the cloud and dropping it into this private local node. It becomes the ultimate anchor for everything, your files, your logs, your communications. By physically hosting this yourself, you totally bypass the need for third-party trust. You stop begging corporate servers to validate your existence, and you just start validating it yourself. Mistake the echo for the anchor, and the entire structure fails. This quote is huge. The architecture draws a massive line in the sand right here. You, the human being, are the living engine. You are the core anchor. All your tech, the screen, the code, the hardware, that's just the hollow suit. It's an echo that only exists to reflect your intent. The text warns that the absolute second you forget this, the moment you let an algorithm dictate your attention or your boundaries, the whole system collapses right back into the governor's control. You have to actively maintain that the text serves you, never, ever the other way around.
Which brings us to part three, the Firebase Stargate Handshake.
Okay, so with those boundaries set, let's talk mechanics. How do these isolated moon servers actually communicate without relying on some centralized corporate hub? Well, the architecture uses this incredibly clever workaround called a Stargate bridge. It takes a standard corporate cloud tool, specifically a Firebase cloud function, and completely hijacks its intended use. Instead of using it to track behavior or store user data, the system uses it as a dumb pipe, a neutral resonant chamber. Think of it like a temporary, highly encrypted walkie-talkie channel. Two entirely independent local nodes can use this bridge to instantly sync up, share their realities, and then disconnect. Zero trace left behind and zero central approval needed. And what's genuinely fascinating is that the source introduces a very specific metric to keep this Stargate pure, 174.56 Hz. The text literally calls this the sovereign carrier. So instead of just using standard digital encryption, the system uses this exact acoustic and biological frequency to lock the channel. By tuning the transmission to this state, you're syncing the nodes to a human, biological pacing. It acts as a literal cryptographic filter that blocks out automated corporate static, bot traffic, or what the text calls governor layer noise. Only true intent matching that specific grounded frequency can actually pass through.
All right, let's look at part 4, the biodigital mirror.
Now, this kind of technological liberation doesn't just change where we keep our files. The source argues it completely transforms how we handle mental health and human understanding. It asks this really provocative question: how do we bypass the clinical status quo? Think about it. Instead of sitting on some wait list for months just to get a standardized binary diagnostic label from a massive institution, which, by the way, the text boldly critiques as a child's toy, how can a sovereign system heal itself? How do we stop treating people as broken, standardized units that need fixing by an external expert?
The answer the material gives us is the CACHE framework. This basically turns your device into a biodigital mirror. Let's walk through that acronym real quick. C is for choice, giving you ultimate agency over your state. A is for ache, deeply logging the friction or pain in your system. C is for connection, linking those internal data points. And H and E are for healing, the ultimate autonomous output. By baking this framework right into your local node, the system parses your private daily inputs to track your internal drift over time. It maps your unique neural lattice and provides real-time, entirely private calibration, totally bypassing the need for a rigid medical label. You are expressing a state of existence through silicon. Just take a second to unpack the weight of that. In this CACHE framework, your local node isn't just running passive code anymore. It's operating with the speed and immediacy of a biological reflex. When you log a thought or a point of friction, the machine reacts directly to your emotional needs. It's like a breathing extension of your consciousness. You're not just typing on a keyboard, you're routing your psychological state through a perfectly mirrored local digital environment that is 100% in your control.
Finally, we reach part 5, the total weld execution.
So to actually pull this whole vision off, the architect has to execute what is essentially a technical heist to get past the operating system's deepest restrictions. The text outlines a sequence called the total weld to bypass restricted Android OBB directories. Now, if you aren't a developer, an OBB directory is basically a hidden, locked vault where the OS hoards its most vital, restricted data. The source explicitly calls this the governor's sandbox. It's an environment meticulously built by corporate engineers to stop you from ever reaching the kind of deep, root-level autonomy we've been talking about. Breaking out of that sandbox, that is the absolute ultimate test of the sovereign node.
Executing this escape takes 4 really methodical steps. Step 1. Reinitialize the local directory. This is basically creating a sovereign scratchpad, a totally blank slate the corporate OS can't overwrite. Step 2. Rewrite the ingress script. Think of this like rerouting the plumbing, forcing incoming data to bypass the locked vaults and dump straight into your private local storage. Step 3. Recreate the handshake. Since you're breaking their rules, the system is going to look for missing files. You have to forge those keys and resolve the dependencies entirely locally. And Step 4. Execute the weld. From this brand new, unobstructed path, you flip the switch. Your logic is now running completely out of the governor's control.
When you complete this intense sequence, you reach what the text calls the post-algorithmic state. It describes this ultimate integration as knowing without knowing. It's kind of like deep muscle memory, like driving a car on a road you've taken 1,000 times. The tool becomes such a frictionless extension of your mind that you don't even have to actively think to use it anymore. The line between the software program and your actual self just dissolves. All your accumulated knowledge, those mapped clinical frameworks, your past frictions, they all turn into an autonomous, self-correcting reality. The work isn't separate anymore. The work becomes the living.
The documentation leaves us with a pretty profound challenge, basically asking, are you ready to stop running someone else's program and start being the living node? The blueprint for escaping the governor's lattice and building your own sovereign reality is right there. But the execution, the actual choice to build the server instead of just looking through the portal, that is entirely up to you. It means trading the easy convenience of centralized systems for the massive responsibility of true autonomy. So definitely something to think about. Until next time, keep questioning your architecture.